Welcome to Blockbuster Recapped. Today, we're diving into a world where everyone gets a superpower, except you. What happens when your lifelong dream of finally getting powers turns into the most spectacularly underwhelming disappointment imaginable? Stick around as we break down every hilarious twist, cringe-worthy moment, and heartfelt lesson without spoiling the chaos. You won't want to miss this train wreck of superpowers. On this alternate Earth, everyone gets a superpower at 18, from flying to controlling elements. But Jen is 25 and hasn't found hers, making her bitter. At a job interview, she learns the boss's power is truth-telling, causing her to say embarrassing things and miss the chance. That evening, Jen meets her casual partner, Luke. As soon as they're done, Luke waits for Jen to go to the bathroom and flies out of the window. Jen feels unappreciated because he always does the same thing. The next day, Jen's roommate Carrie is at her job in a lawyer's office. Her power allows her to let the souls of dead people take over her body for a few minutes, so lawyers use her to solve cases. Unfortunately, this causes clients to get mad at her for getting in the way. In the afternoon, Jen arrives home and finds a lost cat at the door, so she lets him in. Then she sees Carrie's boyfriend Cash trying on a homemade superhero suit and makes fun of him for it. Embarrassed, Cash uses his power to reverse time and quickly closes the door so Jen won't see him soon. Carrie also arrives and cries while sharing how tired she is of clients taking it out on her. So Jen tells her to quit, but Carrie can't because she must support Cash until he finds a job. To lighten the mood, Carrie imitates Hitler to mock him. Later, on a date with Gordon, he won't shake her hand without a glove, as his touch makes people climax instantly. After dinner, they go to Jen's. Gordon avoids using his power, aiming to show he can be good for a woman. He kisses her with plastic between them and does the naughty with gloves on. Cash and Carrie are out in the street, when suddenly, an invisible man grabs Carrie's phone and asks for her purse too. Instead of reversing time, Cash throws his wallet at him and grabs Carrie to run away. Afterward, Cash admits that fighting off the robber felt good, so he wants to become an actual superhero. The next morning, Jen wakes up and decides to try to touch Gordon, but freezes when she sees the cat jump on the bed. The cat ends up touching Gordon first, and wakes him up by screaming out his passion. Disgusted, Gordon goes away, telling Jen they aren't compatible. Afterward, over breakfast, the trio decides to keep the cat, and named him Jizzlord for what he did on the bed. In the evening, Jen takes a cab to her half-sister's birthday party. The driver can predict death, but won't share details with her, just telling her to beware of bears. During the trip, she gets a call from her father, who reminds her to be a good sister. At home, Jen meets her mom, Mary, who can command technology but can't control it, and her partner, Ian, who senses emotions. Jen's half-sister, Andy, turns 18 tonight, and Jen starts an argument by suggesting Andy might not get powers. So Ian uses his ability to calm things down. When Andy finally blows the candles, she waits for her powers to emerge. Yet nothing happens. A smug Jen enjoys the moment. However, when Andy opens the fridge, she tears the door off. Excited, Andy begins showing off her new super strength, so a bitter Jen leaves while drinking. Jen decides to visit Luke, who ignores her texts. She finds him dining with another woman who can shapeshift but rarely does, suggesting her natural beauty, which annoys Jen. Afterward, Luke takes the girl out for a flight, so Jen forces him to do the same for her. The trip is short, and Luke leaves Jen on the street saying their thing is over because Jen can't love anyone if she doesn't love herself. On her way home, Jen calls her dad to hear some words of comfort. However, when she arrives, it's revealed that her dad is dead, and Carrie summons his ghost when Jen needs the support. The next day, Jen and Carrie visit the Discovery Clinic to explore treatments to awaken her powers, but they're too expensive. That night, while Jen sleeps, Jizzlord briefly turns human, then back to a cat before Jen notices. Jen's next plan is to trigger her powers with stress, so she dines with friends and orders the spiciest dish. Unfortunately, she can't handle it and rushes to the store to drink a whole milk bottle, seen by Luke in security cameras, making it extra embarrassing. The next day, Carrie takes Jen to the dentist to try stress again. Jen tries to escape, but Carrie drags her in, and they hear ominous music. The dentist's power makes people generate their own soundtrack, showing how gentle she is. Jen's music changes from ominous to relaxing. Unfortunately, the dentist announces Jen's teeth need fillings, and her music becomes scary again. To calm her down, the dentist gives her some medicine. Meanwhile, Cash contacts an agency to put up an ad asking for superheroes. In the other room, Jizzlord transforms into a man again, but he has trouble walking like a person. He scratches the door to get Cash's attention, but when Cash goes to check on him, Jizzlord is a cat again. Back to Jen, she ends her appointment very woozy. Carrie takes her out, and a masked man suddenly grabs Jen, pushing her into the trunk. It's Cash, who planned this fake kidnapping with Carrie. To add stress, they stop for lunch, letting Jen suffer. Jen, still woozy, leaves Luke a voicemail declaring her love. Cash and Carrie are so distracted, they miss the car being towed until it's too late. Carrie calls Jen for her location, and as they hurry to the lot, Cash admits the car is his mom's and he lacks a license to retrieve it. They sneak into the impound lot but realize they forgot the key. Worse, the medicine wears off, and Jen panics. They have no choice but to call Andy, who smugly demands Jen to ask for the favor nicely. Jen pretends to be nice, and Andy proceeds to rip the trunk hood off easily. Then Jen tries to beat her up, so Carrie has to keep the sisters apart. Suddenly, they hear a car horn, and the girls are horrified to see Mary and Ian have come to pick them up. While Mary scolds her daughter, Jen remembers that she left a voicemail for Luke and asks her mom to delete it. Mary tries, but she still can't control her power and ends up playing the message through the car's speakers. Andy suggests that Jen should spam Luke to distract him from the voicemail. When Jen gets home, she starts taking naughty pictures to send to Luke. Suddenly, she sees Giselord transforming into a man, and she panics, running out of the room. However, she also wonders if she has the power to transform animals by showing them her chest. Her friends join her, and the guy explains he's a shapeshifter stuck as a cat. He hugs Cash. Happy humans see his real face again, but he has amnesia. They call him Giselord and ask questions. Hearing his few memories and realizing he's been a cat for 3 years, Jen decides to keep him until his memory returns. At that moment, Jen gets a text from Luke, who has seen the pictures but also heard the voicemail, so he thinks Jen is weird. Later that night, Jen goes for a walk and sees a dog, so she flashes her chest to test her theory. The dog stays the same, and its owner ends up seeing her as well. The next morning, the friends learn that Giselord has forgotten how to use lots of basic household objects, so he'll require lots of help at work. Carrie channels the soul of a famous singer who turns down a contract to get her music in elevators on cruise ships and instead asks to come back to the industry. After the meeting, the manager makes Carrie and she could work with them by channeling dead celebrities to make them sing again, which Carrie happily accepts. When she makes it to the recording studio, she calls Jen and asks her to come over for moral support, promising her to pay her for it. This gives Jen an idea, and she shows up at the studio pretending to be Carrie's manager, which allows her to get Carrie a juicy deal. When it's time to record, Carrie channels the singer they want, only to discover he's hard to work with and very misogynistic. The ghost even asks Jen to help him remember his lyrics, and after he disappears, Carrie searches for his songs only to learn they're all racist and misogynistic too. Carrie is uncomfortable and wants to quit, but Jen convinces her to stay for the money, hoping the ghost's bad memory won't notice. Carrie changes the songs a bit to make them less offensive, but sadly, the singer hates the nice message and makes a huge scene. Carrie and Jen are both immediately fired. Back in the house, Cash interviews a bunch of candidates for his superhero team. Seb can summon sea creatures but not control them, and he makes a fish fly through the window. Since his family is rich, Cash recruits him anyway. Ada can move through solid objects, yet ends up with his hand stuck inside a wall, but he's also recruited. A woman has magnet powers, but ends up attracting every object in the house over her lack of control. So Cash turns her down together with the guy who can transform anything in a PDF and the person whose lasers do nothing. Randall can use his rear to 3D print objects, which he demonstrates by making a small figurine. Finally, Gregor has super speed, proving it by bringing a postcard from the British Museum in just a second. Afterward, Cash is getting ready for the first official meeting when Giselord suddenly brings him a dead pigeon. Not wanting him to embarrass him in front of the others, Cash sends Giselord to do the groceries at the store. Giselord is overwhelmed by everything, and seeing the female products makes him faint. The clerk immediately helps him out and gives him a book on women's anatomy to better understand the products. Back to Cash. He meets his superhero friends and sees Gregor writing on the board. Gregor talks a lot, and Cash feels he's trying to take leadership. After Randall makes a marker with his backside, they discuss saving a woman. Gregor says he should lead because he respects ladies, while Cash argues he's better as an expert on women's anatomy. Seb draws a woman's privates on the board and asks Cash to find the happy spot, which Cash doesn't know. Lord. Luckily, Giselord comes back and helps him, so Cash stays as the leader. When Carrie and Jen arrive home, they hear some weird noises and find Cash and Giselord playing a game they built with the lady products, so they all play together. Sometime later, the magnet woman comes back because she forgot her umbrella. And suddenly, she sticks to Giselord, meaning he's microchipped. The group decides to take Giselord to see Dr. Doolittle, a vet capable of communicating with animals. His stress levels are pretty high because he's constantly hearing their cries, so he uses headphones for silence. When Jen brings Giselord, Doolittle immediately finds the microchip and gives them the old owner's address. Later, Cash and Carrie are getting down to business when suddenly Cash receives a text from his new team about a mission. He tells Carrie they can finish this another time, and Carrie feels hurt, so Cash rewinds time to say something nicer. Yet he leaves anyway. To distract herself, Carrie goes to Jen's room to start cleaning, and her frustration makes Jen realize that Cash hasn't satisfied Carrie in a while. Jen finds Luke's sock and sends him a picture. She also finds Gordon's glove. Jen suggests Carrie see Gordon to use his powers, but Carrie refuses to cheat. Afterward, Jen and Giselord finally visit the address from the microchip, only to learn that the owner is dead. At that moment, they hear Tito the Pomeranian bark, and Giselord describes him as evil, making them realize he's met him before. The duo decides to steal Tito from his owner and take him to Doolittle, who translates the dog's message. Tito hates Giselord and won't share any information until they give him his dream day out. Doolittle needs a break too, so he joins them. The group ends up in a club where Tito enjoys getting lots of attention from beautiful women. The others drink a lot and even consume some uppers. When Jen and Giselord get a private dance from a woman who duplicates herself, they feel too uncomfortable and hold hands for mutual support. Soon Doolittle is so intoxicated that he starts harassing the dancers, and the bouncers kick the group out. Thankfully, Tito is very happy and shares that he used to run into Giselord all the time in an alley behind a famous pub. Then he asks them to let him go so he can finally be free. But as soon as takes a few steps, he's hit by a car. Then Jen and Giselord go to the alley to look for clues, and Giselord shocks himself by reciting the pub's menu. Jen thinks they should go inside and find the landlady, but Giselord panics and runs away. Meanwhile, Cash's team tries to help someone on the street, but they scare her and trigger her goop power, making her mad. Then, a man asks for help as he's locked out of his apartment. They pick Ade for the task. He removes his clothes to use his power, but while going through the wall, he gets stuck with his rear exposed. Gregor decides to leave Cash with Ade and takes the others to a bar. Moments later, Cash gets a call from Gregor asking for his help. Cash rushes to find the team, leaving Ade alone. The group is currently in a tough fight outside the bar, and Gregor wants Cash to rewind time to avoid it. But Cash can only go back for 10 seconds, and it isn't enough, no matter how many times he tries. Suddenly, a thug goes after Cash, who pretends he doesn't know the others and runs away. At home, Carrie finally loses it over dissatisfaction and visits Gordon, pretending to return his glove. She cries, begging for help, but admits she can't continue. To apologize, she calls Gordon a hero, boosting his mood, and he starts helping other women. While Carrie reunites with Cash, Jen finds Giselord outside their apartment and tells him the pub was a dead end. They bond over their fears of discovering who they truly are, and when they're about to come closer, they're interrupted by a text from Luke asking for his sock. The next day, Ade is still stuck on the wall for everyone to see. In the meantime, Jen and Carrie go to their former high school to attend Andy's graduation, and Carrie can't stop imagining what it would have been like to have the perfect graduation ceremony. When another student's mother approaches, Mother Mary claims Jen can read minds. The lie backfires when Jen laughs as the woman tries to telepathically say a teacher died. Ian senses distress nearby, blindfolds himself to enhance his power, and finds the person. Frustrated, Jen takes Carrie to a closet to drink the alcohol they hid years ago. Suddenly, they panic hearing Rebecca's voice, the girl who harassed them in high school. Now she's nice and a teacher. Rebecca says she can revisit memories, realizing her past behavior and becoming better. Jen is skeptical and asks for money as an apology. After Rebecca pays, she sees Carrie tense and takes her to the staff room for tea. Now they're alone, Rebecca can point out that Jen was an awful friend to Carrie and proves it by showing her some school memories. The day Carrie was supposed to receive an award, Jen made her stay with her as moral support while she took a pregnancy test. Later on graduation day, Jen didn't want her mom to know she dropped out of school and borrowed Carrie's graduation gown, but didn't return it in time, so Carrie's picture was ruined. Rebecca tells Carrie she needs to stand up for herself. Meanwhile, Jen hides in the bathroom to drink and overhears Andy talking to her girlfriend. It turns out Andy lied about getting into the conservatoire and she isn't dating her girlfriend anymore, both consequences of her super strength. As soon as the ex leaves, Jen confronts Andy, who agrees to do anything if Jen keeps the secret. The sisters return to the party, and Jen forces Andy to do the family dance, which embarrasses her in front of everyone. Next, Jen hands Andy an embarrassing speech. When Andy accepts the award and reads the terrible words, she gets angry and mocks her sister, leading Jen to reveal secrets. A devastated Andy runs away crying, and Ian realizes the upset person was his daughter. Then it's Carrie's turn to speak, but she struggles as Jen's family argues loudly in the next room, audible from the auditorium. Carrie sees Rebecca was right about Jen and hides in the bathroom. Jen enters, ranting about her life, and Carrie snaps, calling her selfish, and saying lack of powers isn't an excuse for bad behavior. They argue, and Carrie runs off, leaving Jen in tears. Alone, Giselord finds a depressed Cash in the tub feed. Feeling guilty about last night, Jizzlord brushes his hair and shows penguin videos to cheer him up. While browsing, they find a viral video of Cash fleeing the fight. Cash's mood drops again. During the following days, Jen and Carrie won't talk to each other, so Jizzlord has to act as their middleman. One morning, Jen finds red dots on most apartment objects and learns that Carrie has labeled her things to forbid Jen from using them, as she seldom purchased for their home. Jen can only eat a red onion for breakfast. Afterward, Jen goes to a discovery clinic determined to get those tests done. While filling out the paperwork, she meets Hannah, another girl in her 20s who doesn't have powers. The girls go to a bar and bond over their powerless experiences. Later, they see a woman who changes her hair color, and they're so bitter they prank her by cutting her ponytail in the bathroom. Knowing her power, they soon realize they cut the wrong woman's hair and must flee. At the apartment, Carrie finds Cash's embarrassing video and suggests he apologize to his friends to start anew. Cash agrees and goes to find his teammates. Jizzlord then asks Carrie why she and Jen are fighting. As Carrie complains about Jen, she finds their puzzle collection and remembers their happy moments. Playing, lamenting, not finishing them together. When Jen comes back, she says she's got a new best friend and claims that the jigsaw collection is hers. So Carrie retaliates by refusing to summon Jen's dad anymore. Meanwhile, Cash visits Seb, who is going to Florida to forget about what happened. Cash apologizes and gifts him some chocolate, making Seb cry and hug him as he requests to come along. Then Cash and Seb visit Ade, who accepts Cash's apology and agrees they should bring the team back together. Next, they visit Gregor and Cash tries to apologize, only to discover Gregor and Randall have formed their own team with the other rejects. Gregor starts making fun of his previous teammates, and a furious Cash challenges him to a fight since Gregor has super speed. Cash loses pretty quickly, so in the end he decides to rewind time and punch Gregor as soon as he opens the door. Then he invites Randall to join them. Later, Jen meets with Hannah and is shocked to hear she won't go to the clinic anymore. The girls decide to spend the day having fun together and discuss the idea of forming a group for those with no powers while shooting toy darts at flying people. At that moment, Luke flies by, and Jen hides the toy gun, which upsets Hannah. To make it up to her, Jen agrees to sneak into the clinic to trash the offices, even relieving herself on a desk. Suddenly, Hannah vanishes, discovering her teleportation powers. Jen gets jealous, but Hannah promises nothing will change. However, when a guard appears, Hannah vanishes again. Later at the apartment, Jen sees on social media that Hannah is with Luke, upsetting her. Jizzlord mentions that Carrie wants to finish the puzzle together, suggesting they reconcile. Jen goes to see Carrie and they start working on the puzzle, starting in an awkward mood, but slowly patching up their friendship. The next day, Carrie takes Jen to the clinic so she can finally finish the paperwork. Trying to be less selfish, Jen asks Carrie about her problems, and Carrie confesses that since Cash has his team back, their relationship is suffering. Afterward, Jen tries to sell her eggs to get the money for the treatment, but nobody wants to buy them. Watching Jizzlord, she thinks he should enter a cat show and win due to his human intelligence. But Jizzlord refuses to transform, fearing getting stuck again. Meanwhile, Carrie returns to her job and channels Charles II, who flirts with her. She's so flattered and fascinated that at home she summons him again and they chat all afternoon. She uses a mirror to show Charles how she looks, and he flatters her even more. Afterward, she tries to have a whole date day with Cash, but he has a mission and promises to see her later. Disappointed, Carrie decides to take Charles Ghost to the museum where he sees the paintings they've done of him. Charles starts flirting with her, and Carrie almost kisses him portrait, but a guard stops her just in time. Carrie goes home and hears Jen scream as she discovers Jizzlord has eaten cat food to transform again. He also left a recording agreeing to be taken to the cat show. When registering, Jen uses the Chip's cat name, exciting everyone as this cat was always a contest hit. Jen finds old show videos and sees Jizzlord used to dance in talent segments. She tries to make him do the moves now to practice, but Jizzlord doesn't understand her, and she thinks of giving up. However, she listens to Jizzlord's supportive message again and decides to make him proud. So she makes a plan. When it's time to perform, Jen tries to make the cat jump through a hoop, but he doesn't obey. Then she starts dancing and Jizzlord becomes human to join her. They do a wonderful dance together and have fun, but the judges don't approve and they have to leave. On their way out, Jizzlord tries to apologize, but Jen kisses him instead. In an abandoned building, Cash's team is looking for some dealers and discovers Gregor's team is the two. An argument ensues until they hear footsteps, so everyone rushes to hide in a cupboard. Hours pass, and the teams won't come out because Cash doesn't want to share the glory. So the others make fun of him for choosing his own ego over going to his date. At the apartment, Carrie is having dinner with Charles II and having a great time. When things are about to get dirty, Cash shows up and announces he's quitting the superhero business, which makes Carrie happy. However, When Cash chooses pizza and YouTube again, she begins to wonder if they really are a good match. The next day, the newspapers reveal both superhero teams work together to defeat the dealers. Jen wakes up to discover Jizzlord is painting the bedroom wall, assuming they're a couple now that will live together. After explaining to him this is moving too fast, Jen and Carrie have a chat. Jen gets to talk to her dad again. Then she advises Carrie to be honest with Cash. Carrie tries to break up with him, but he announces he's throwing a party for her, so she saves it for later in the evening. Carrie is really touched to see Cash has made all the decorations to celebrate his beloved girlfriend, but Jen reminds her to stand up for herself. Jen is shocked to find Mary critiquing the room and looks frustrated. She sends her to Gordon. Mary, now cooler, chats with Jizzlord, who reveals Jen can't afford the clinic. Mary is hurt her daughter didn't share this. Meanwhile, Carrie tells Cash she feels like his mom, not his girlfriend. Cash wants to know how to fix it, so Carrie tells him to get a job. Then he rewinds time, and before she can talk to him, he pretends he's on the phone arranging an interview, impressing her. However, as soon as she's out of sight, Cash hides in the bathroom, with Randall to panic, because he's been avoiding the breakup talk. It turns out Cash has been awake for 28 hours and turned back time every time Carrie tried to break up with him. Randall gives him an energy drink to keep his power active. Then the duo goes out to buy lots of cans. Jen watches them from afar until she bumps into Luke, who is worried because she has been ignoring his texts. Suddenly, Jizzlord interrupts them and introduces himself as Jen's boyfriend, so she drags him away to scold him for going too fast, and says they need some time off. At that moment, Cash tells her someone is in her room, and Jen rushes in to discover her mom hacking into her computer. An argument ensues over their disastrous relationship, but things calm down when the topic of Jen's dead dad comes up. Feeling guilty, Jen asks Mary to stay. In the meantime, Cash tries to dance with Carrie, who notices a dead flower in his pocket. Her own flower is still fine, which makes him realize Cash has been rewinding time a lot. Carrie hides with Jen, and they start ranting about Cash, unaware that Jizzlord is leaving the apartment for good. Jen tells Carrie about the energy drinks, so Carrie goes to the bathroom to empty the cans into the toilet, while Jen sends Cash to watch her crying. Carrie finally breaks up with him, and no matter how many times Cash rewinds, he can't prevent it from happening. Back to Jen. She gets excited when Luke offers to take her flying, but he refuses to touch her in front of everyone and takes her outside. Then he starts complaining about Jizzlord, and Jen realizes he's just jealous. She defends Jizzlord and realizes how much he means to her, so she dumps Luke and returns to the party. Jen gets desperate when she can't find Jizzlord anywhere and goes outside to search for him, running after a cat down the street as it starts raining. Jen apologizes to the cat and asks him to be her boyfriend, only for Jizzlord to appear behind her. After the couple shares a passionate kiss, they return to the apartment, and Jen introduces Jizzlord as her boyfriend. Mary wants to help her daughter with the clinic, but it's too expensive for her too, so Gordon cuts in and offers the money. Thanks to selling his services, he's loaded now. The girls hug to celebrate, and Jizzlord hugs Gordon, causing him to stain his pants. The next morning, Jizzlord goes to the grocery store, and a girl points at him saying he's her daddy. Her mom drops groceries, recognizing his face. Subscribe and turn on notifications for more videos. Thanks for watching.